Team now in already on that Widowmaker. We have Pharmacy coming through, start things out with spam comps. Nuns on the Sombra. They're expecting a bunker. What they're about to find is going to be Ryan Ghost. And to be fair, this comp works pretty good versus that as well.
Yeah, exactly. You've still got those spam options, and you're going to get a lot of pressure onto those backliners as well through every single one of these DPSs, so you already see the reaction to that. Fiery Society kind of have to hunker down a little bit.
And this is the risk you take because Fiery Society are a Ghost team. They already have a Sleep Pack member, rather. This could be difficult now.
Yeah, big displacement there from a Ting, finding an absolutely beautiful line through, and did Satchok the first member to go down. Like I said, applying the pressure to Satchok. Now they're able to get Red and Evil, and this is a very clean push and should be a very clean take now from Nova MS.
That's two of the important members down. I mean, the Satchok's already swapping onto the Winston. Fire Society, Red and Evil going onto the Sombra. This is their response now to DPSs. There's no sniper, of course, just yet, which means Inin, Shailin, Jervis, all pretty much uncontested in the air. Unfortunately, Red and Evil's going to do a lot more work. Iris, so decent first pick, will get rest.
Yeah, Jervis is there for that. Actually, Jervis is hacked for that, so he can't find it, and Satchok finds the dive to follow that up. So nicely done by Fiery Society, not going to let Nova MS just get a free snowball. Even killing Inin is very good because Inin can just get a few picks to get momentum back in the ball, on the court rather, for Nova MS.
And I gotta say, Fire Society are really good at making things work, which on paper you wouldn't expect to work nearly as well. This is a case where it's not really the ideal members to be dealing with Widowmakers and Fires. However, Iris pops one in the air. Red and Evil follows up with a counter. The EMP, rather the hack to prevent the rest coming in for Fire Society. They now manage to swap Nova MS onto ground-based 3-2 Ghost Comp as well. So it's going to be basically a mirror matchup.
This is what Fiery Society want. The only unfortunate thing is they are still running the Winstons. Shock is barely able to get out here. Nun's not quite able to confirm that kill, but it's given a lot of space to this cart now.
You also have Inin playing Ana as well, so slightly better matchup overall. There actually is a Diva on the other side, so maybe scratch that. But Fire Society, they're lacking the Zarya. That's a big deal.
Nice EMP. Satchok unfortunately doesn't quite get saved by that Transcendence, and it's a shame. He would have had a Primal Rage too. They could have maybe started to turn the fight back around, but instead, they just have to take a retreat here. They're going to make a swap over onto the Reinhardt as well. It should give them a better matchup in the long run, but for the short run, Nova MS are now pressuring this cap.
And now you need to see a big EMP out of Red and Evil. This has to connect big time. This has to be where they stop the push because the cart positioning is very far off already.
Oh, he actually ends up going in off the back end of a Ting who had committed a charge, and a successful one at that. They do at least get the trade, and they find Shailin as well, so they're in a decent position here. They forced the retreat from Nova MS.
And Nova still looking for what kind of ultimates they have available. It was actually a really good start for Nova.
Yeah.
If they didn't lose a team too quickly, you would see them get their own grabs. You would see them get the Earth Shatter in there as well. Nano Boost now being available. This is where you expect them that despite losing that previous push, they should be able to complete the cap off this, assuming that they don't fail this push.
Red and Evil's also gone ahead and made a swap. And that actually means that Nova MS are going to be running the Sombra where Fiery Society are not. Could be a bit of a difference maker potentially.
And they do want to have the Zarya in this particular matchup. They would rather drop the Diva for the Sombra if required.
Speaking of drop, a Ting is going to drop right in on top of Fiery Society, who are now all caught in a grab, and there is just no escaping this one. Does end up being costly for Nova MS though, so Fiery Society might at least be pleased with that. They got most of the impactful ultimates out, but the unfortunate reality is Nova MS coming up on an EMP anyway, and they're going to get this B cap.
Huge team wipe there, all 6 members down. Nova MS get the successful push, and yeah, they did use a lot there. They also have the EMP coming online, so this is where they're going to be looking for more kills. Instant respawn, it's in the wrong place. Sadly, Transcendence being committed super early. I say wrong place, but actually they're saved.
Yeah.
They might actually be able to fight now.
They've cut off a Ting as well. Nova MS pressed in really hard to that, and half of them realized, so hold on, there's more members here than we thought. They start retreating, but they unfortunately had to leave a Ting out to dry. Mui ends up the worst end of that as well. It's a good early fight for Fiery Society, actually, to stop that extra bit of momentum snowball.
And it seemed like a forced error, I would say forced error, but that ends up being really good for them, where they were forced to use Transcendence because they didn't want to lose members. And then afterwards, they realized, why don't we just push off this? We're kind of winning this fight. Let's push into the card itself. And then they did so. Got that one in there. EMP now out from Nuns.
Unfortunately, Satchok threw the shatter right into a Ting's barrier, but they've stayed alive for now. They don't have any ultimates though. Red and Evil commits a grab, but They can't approach a Ting with that nano boost on him, especially not with the sound barrier there as well, so he's going to pick up another kill for himself, and it's so heartbreaking when you consider Iris and Fearless were so close to ultimates that could have saved the team, or at least given them the opportunity to push into that grab properly.
And that's the thing, Iris got a second Transcendence in record time, so that would have been very useful. However, losing both Satchok and Red and Evil, your two biggest members in a GOATS comp now, a pure 3-3, using the grab as well, instantly losing Zarya, that's bad news for them, and so now they're playing ultra defensive, double support ultimates available, and big uses, big weapons available for Nova MS.
That's the thing, it's the grab and Transcendence to try and deal with it, but Look For You's already down. They commit a sound barrier as well very early, but still a Shadow to be committed out from a Ting. Shadow there from Satchok. It's okay. They're really struggling here, though, and Nova MS still has so much momentum. And honestly, 1-to-1 Mui just outpaces Red and Evil in every facet on the Zarya as well. He has better ult charge, he has better barrier usage, he has better charge up time, and it's really an impactful pick for Nova MS, where Far East Society aren't getting the same. And speaking of impactful picks, Nuns as well, another EMP up already, and that's going to be the full cap.
And a lot of momentum coming through. Yeah, there were a couple of fights there where for Nova MS they were stopped up, forced to reset, but every time they reset, didn't feel like they were at a deficit, didn't feel like they had spent a lot there, and now they're really far behind in economy or behind on time or, you know, presence on the card or anything, but they come back in really strong. Every time they've been reset, their next fight, they win pretty handily. They move in, get a lot of distance pushed, and then for the end here as well, Nova get themselves another EMP. They have Grab, they have Shatter. They're a double support ultimates for Far East Society, but once those are used up, there's nothing really left to go on. There's no more offensive ults. There's nothing to return the damage. They're sort of waiting on respawn advantage, which never really kicks in for them because they never got enough counter trains for those numbers to mean something.
Yeah.
And Nova MS, off the back of, you would say, a really clean A push, which gave them a lot of time onto B. Some little bit of slowdown for B, but otherwise a pretty good run through B as well, pretty good run through C. Finishing here, 2 minutes 22, very respectable time back.
I also just want to talk about your sort of offensive ultimate options. This is quite sort of, it's unfortunate actually for Far East Society, but you look at what Nova MS were running towards the end. They had the Zarya and the Sombra. They have the EMP and the Grav. That's a lot of potential offensive tools. You're also looking at the comparative ult uptime for Far East Society. Unfortunately, Red and Evil, and this isn't to pick on the guy, but his grabs aren't coming up often enough. He doesn't have enough damage on his own weapon. And when they do connect to the grabs, there's generally speaking a decent way for it to be dealt with on the side of Nova MS. So you've got more offensive tools that are connecting more often compared to just the one from Far East Society. And I mean, Satchok's struggling to get shatters through. That's not uncommon, but it means they're really struggling in these
Well, let's talk about matchups as well, because right at the beginning, the reason you see, okay, they put Red and Evil on the Sombra, that's usually a weird thing because your Diva plays meant to play the Sombra. However, they're going up against Dive, as about to get the game back in as well, but you also want the Diva versus that Dive. On this defense now, Nova playing back on the Mui back on Torb for Mui rather, Orisa Hog, spam comp as well. They were maybe expecting a very ground-based composition for Far East Society, which would be correct. Swap Satchok over to the Winston, put Red and Evil back on the Sombra, so that exact same composition they used previously, they're now playing again.
Back on the bunker, boys. Far East Society. They've got the right kind of GOATS comp to deal with this. That is, if you want to play a GOATS comp into it in the first place, so we'll have to see if they can accomplish this. Ooh, team split up though.
Again, it's decent because you have the Diva that can contest in the air as well, but you lose the ground damage from the Zarya and you don't get the kill on Nuns.
And slips out, 8 health remaining, and in that time, the rest of Nova MS did get some work done, but Far East Society, to say nothing of their own kills coming through, unfortunately there's a res there, so the numbers still favor Nova MS, and this is where we start to see the self-sustain of these picks and the pick potential really start to do work for Nova MS.
You're waiting to see if we can get an EMP online soon because you have Far East Society where, okay, their main damage output has to be coming from the Winston Diva dive. That part of the composition really feels like classic 2-2-2 dive because you do need to see those two working together to assassinate members. You don't have the Zarya to just beam down people anymore. Look for Yu's playing basically a bit of a guard here. In many cases, maybe you should be playing Genji or Trace in that position instead.
Irish dying in the rotation is just super brutal. They can't really afford to commit to this. They do at least get the Dragon Strike out. They lose Look For You as well, though, so they're still not necessarily in a better position.
Shailin is pushed up, and this is where if you can land a pretty nice sleep dart, he will get caught, but whole team is also pushed up with him, so Nova, they're just not really having members that are too exposed, that can get themselves killed. D-Mech onto Aros means there's going to be a reset on the self-destruct, which is going to slow down Fire Society some more, especially now that they do have an EMP available and they do want to push in.
And I think this is where we're starting to see a bit of the disparity between these two teams, is Fiery Society having just a much harder time shutting down the critical components of Nova MS comparatively.
You're in a sort of meta where you can't just be a 3-3 purist team either. EMP comes and catches 3.
I mean, it's actually decent because it gets the 2 airborne members, one of whom is Jervis, goes down straight away, no res available. They find Shailin. They had to commit quite a lot to keep in this fight, but it has paid off for them now, Fiery Society, and they've got a nano boost. They won't be able to commit it, and good thing too, I wouldn't have wanted them to commit it, to be frank with you, but Jervis has actually been able to come back in.
Members are alive, and it's good counter picks.
Kind of sitting on his laurels, fishing away at the turret, just leaves it open for in to find the pick. And like I said, Jervis back in means there can still be a res if someone goes down. And it's actually Mui, he reses, Rocket Barrage in, finds look for you, and could still be anyone's fight.
And Multicore coming in as well. They want to use all these ultimates because they're unlikely to be playing a lot of these picks on B anyway. So slow down A as much as you can, get as many picks as you can find. Dragon Strike as well being added into the mix.
Yeah, man, they're still finding picks here is the thing. It's just nowhere near clean for Fiery Society, and that means inevitably they have to start committing more ultimates now. In fact, they've had to commit more ultimates, and they're still not really assured of victory here because the few members of Nova MS that are still in the fight are also getting picks in their own right.
And this is taking so long. We're now down to 20 seconds remaining. Nova have banked in everything. Their respawns made it back in time. Fiery Society, unfortunately, not the same case. They don't have quite enough to go on anymore. You need to see another EMP, but even then, you're not sure if it's going to be good enough anymore.
We're starting to feel like Nova MS's fights, when they're attacking, are getting cleaner and cleaner, or Fiery Society are unfortunately struggling more and more and failing to close out fights where they were earlier in the series already. Off to a very rough start in completely unanswered on this Doomfist right now. Going to be able to smack Aros out of the mech. Meteor Strike to go on some squishy members for free. Should be able to get at least some pressure on look for you. The sound barrier is there for a moment, but Fiery Society haven't exactly got kills yet. Mui's got himself another Molten Core over the point. They have to stay on that point, otherwise the overtime just disappears. The EMP, they can't follow up on. It's only in who dies, and I think Nova MS are going to do this. They're going to ultimately complete a hold on A here, and that could not have gone worse for Fiery Society.
Yep, unfortunately for them, unable to complete a camp on A, unable to fully defend A, B, or C. And this is Nova MS in some ways, you have to say, outclassing specifically on this map because they got the most mileage out of their offense, they got the most mileage out of their defense, and for Fire Society, the complete opposite. So we're getting to a space now where 2-1 in the series, Busan being the only outlier here. Temple of Anubis, we can still make arguments to say, okay, very winnable map for Fire Society. Hollywood, not so much. Definitely not a winnable map.
It's a bit rough as well. Like I said, I think this is where we're starting to see the disparity between these two teams. Like Nova MS are just getting cleaner and cleaner and cleaner as time goes by, especially when they're attacking. And Fiery Society, on the other hand, are struggling to close out fights that they should be winning. And when you start to add all of that together, you start to get situations where Nova MS get a full cap while Fiery Society don't even cap A. And
didn't get a full chance to explain this during the actual game, but I was sort of saying this is not a meta that you get to play and get away with only having a 3-3 goats as being your main composition. Look, that can be what your bread and butter is, but you need the flexibility to also bring out the spam, the bunkers. Yeah. They have played a little bit of bunker, they played a little bit of sombra, but there's not enough threat in terms of certain members. You don't really fear a Widowmaker coming through. You don't fear a Pharah coming through either. You do if you're playing against Nova because look, if Eden plays Widow, if Mui plays Widow, if Shailin plays Tracer or Pharah, if certain picks come through, you have to respect those. And because you have to respect those, there's certain things that you can't do on either phases of attack or defense where, for example, running a pure 3-3 goats, yes, you put the Moira in there, it's not really going to be that good, not good enough. You're playing Sechuk on the Rhine, yeah, you're going to do that. If you're going to go for a gentleman's agreement where the other team, maybe it's Global Esports, will say, hey, yeah, we will play on the ground, we'll play this 3-3 mirror with you, that's great. You go up against Nova, they're not going to shake your hand on that one. They're going to slap it away because they can bring out the Fire, they can bring out the Hans, they can bring out all the other picks that can abuse you for playing a Rhine.
And then let's also look at that Streets phase on their attack. They actually did end up going on 3-3. It also ended up being a Rhine 3-3 almost mirror matchup. There was still the Sombra in there for Nova MS. So even when they do meet you on a more one-to-one fashion, they'll still beat you on that because they have the extra level of confidence. And again, this is where we start to see a little bit of the disparity. It's really tough for a team like Bari Society. It always is for a Trials team because there's so many known quantities on Nova MS. And these are newer players in the grand sense of things, more unproven players that are trying to go toe-to-toe on a one-to-one basis with some of the best players from the region.
And now Escort's going to have to be much better for Far East Society if they want to stay in the game. So far, 2-1 means match point for Nova. We'll see what happens pretty soon. First of all, let's go and find out a little bit more about the Escort game mode.
Welcome to Watchpoint Gibraltar. This is Escort. Two teams face off as either defenders or attackers. This is the payload. The attacking team has a limited amount of time to escort the payload along a set path containing 3 checkpoints. The payload only moves forward when an attacker stands near it. Defenders can delay the payload's movement by standing nearby at the same time. To get moving again, attackers must clear away the defenders by force. Every time the payload reaches a checkpoint, the attackers score 1 point and gain additional time on the clock. If even one attacker is near the payload when the clock runs out, the game enters overtime. This extends play indefinitely until the attackers are either cleared off the payload or they gain more time by reaching a checkpoint. The round ends when the payload reaches the destination or when time runs out. Teams switch sides each round. Whichever team scores the most points and escorts the payload farthest wins.
Escort going to be on Havana, and the last opportunity for Far East Society to maybe turn things around here. Maybe a map 5 would be pretty good. We did say that, okay, if we did go to Ilios, Busan was won by Far East Society. However, there is a narrative now where as much as Far East Society may have won Temple of Anubis, Nova MS may have won Busan. So I'm not even fully convinced that if we do go to map 5, it's necessarily pivoted one way or the other. I think both teams have a very good chance at Ilios too.
And that's to say nothing of Havana itself, right? Havana is a map where often we see teams cerebrally know a strategy but not be able to actually execute on it. And I mean, I don't want to speak too soon, but Far East Society have struggled to execute on strategies so far tonight.
I know what this is. I'm being baited.
These pigeons know what's up. One of them, for a brief moment, was pecking in time with the music. I was quite impressed.
Ooh. They heard a coup.
Wow, they actually have sound effects on the pigeons. Oh, yeah. So much detail in this.
I'm as excited as Lucio about that.
He heard the pigeons like, yeah! So Far East Society. There you go, please.
Nice. No, I will. Is that one eats the pie. But this is now going to be another 3-3. And guess what? Nova MS are like, well, time to bring out the fire. The only real difficulty here is how you get out the doors. But if you can't get out the doors, Shylin is going to do a lot.
Well, the Ting already did it. He sort of like rolled around the side before anyone noticed him. It's a 1-for-1 so far, but Nova MS are happier with that because A, they've got respawn right there, and B, got Jervis on a Mercy, and at this point, Far East Society probably should have started backing up. They can't really contest these members. They don't want to lose more members here either.
Well, eventually you will get farmed up. Look at Shylin's ult charge here. You can hide as long as you want, but eventually members go down. Innen's already getting kills on the Bastion.
Yeah, this is the sneaky one here. They can just set that one up while Far East Society are kind of looking the other way. By the other way, I mean up in the skies at Shylin. So look, they're not even going to commit to this pick long term here, Nova MS. Actually, they almost could at this point, but they probably won't. And
well, I think they should, because Far East Society have already displayed that they're not really willing to play non-3-3 goats, the Ryan version, even the Winston version. Either way, it's not going to be quite good enough to deal with a Bastion, which Iden will swap off, but Shylin staying on the fire means no one really contests him. So you're seeing another symptom of team that is not flexible enough to play other picks, getting shut down by Fire in the Sky.
And look, playing that forward defense only works if you take time off the clock and don't give your opponent something in return. In this case, Far East Society have given Nova MS a chunk of ultimates. However, as they come back in for the re-engage, they are able to get some entry frags that have done a lot of damage. However, it's not quite over just yet. Nova MS still have more than enough to push back in on. AVRL separated from his team by the Molten Core. He's going to get demacked, and in the long run, Nova MS still come out on top of the fight. Part of that as well is the closer respawn. So on balance, I would say, Fiery Society failed at that forward hold, as we've seen so many teams do now.
And to speak of the forward hold as well, if you are the Ghost team, the only way you prevent yourself from getting swarmed by Fires and the likes is you have to play whack-a-mole on all the doors. Every time a DPS pokes their head out, you have to push them back in. If somebody gets out and you start getting surrounded, you will lose. And now you're all but surrounded. EMP available, Valkyrie, Minefield, all coming online. You've only got a rally to work with and sooner self-destruct.
They're going to get an extra one as well, but they're having a hard time even just getting down onto this point. Shailin just keeping a lid on a lot of these members. Nice self-destruct though from Aros, kind of catching a few members of Nova MS. I don't want to say unawares, it's more just, I mean, where do you even retreat to when you've got this lineup? Safari Society kind of force their way back in, and at this point Nova MS are starting to run low on time.
And you are really thankful that Aros was going to get the self-destruct in time, because that was the only other ultimate they were going to work with, both rally and self-destruct being used there. And like you mentioned, not a lot to do when you are Nova MS. You don't have a Ryan shield, you don't have a Winston bubble, can't really get around it, so just going to reset there, hold on to whatever they have remaining.
Ting is maybe looking to come in with a minefield or something, and they also got the Rocket Barrage available, but Fiery Society do have some ultimates here, some answers. Satchok gets massively chunked, and this can't keep happening to them.
I'll tell you what, I mean, that's the that's a big loss on the side of Nova, so...
Rocket Barrage, though, taking out Red and Evil when he had a grab just about available. It was at 99% when he died. It's going to be the Transcendence coming out from Iris. It's one part Minesweeper, one part Team Saver, so it's kind of doing double duty there, and this multi-core from Mui, a little bit less impressive on balance.
It's a little optimistic, this one.
Yeah, they're not really able to force Fiery Society onto it for the fight, so they can just wait this one out.
This is where, okay, if you caught Fiery Society in a corner somewhere, that would have been much better. If you had the members to maybe work with, but solo grab onto a Ting is actually not that bad, because you're just cleaning up more members, you're preventing Nova from pushing.
It eliminates a lot of the forward pressure and chaos making that the DPSs of Nova MS are relying on for these fights. They're also aware that with the time being as it is, it may well be the final fight of the match, especially with these late kills coming in onto NN. If they can find nuns here as well, less than 10 seconds, there's no way he's getting back to this cut before overtime. So we'll see if Nova MS can last long enough for an EMP to even come in.
Staggered kills, staggered ultimates. It's just going to be one member touching this card, but I don't know how long a Ting can remain. Not very long is the answer.
Yeah, now they just end up trickling in one by one. So they failed on the whack-a-mole at the gates, but they are going to succeed on the whack-a-mole on the cart itself. There's the EMP though, but it doesn't catch Fearless. That is exactly what Fiery Society were hoping for, and it means that the one thing that maybe could have saved Nova MS is unfortunately not going to do so. Jervis getting pressured, he will now go down, and Nova MS are ultimately going to get held. So look, I'll fault Fiery Society for how that first hold played out, but they recovered it and end up getting what is a brilliant hold on the whole for A.
And we're going to say a lot of that came down to Aros and the triple kill for the self-destruct, followed by a few more in the following fights where, okay, you look at how the next engagement happens. Jervis goes down early. That's one of the key members. He cannot go down because he's the only healer. If he dies, that's all your healing gone. That's a lot of your staying power gone. And then Nova MS started to run out of time, started to then lose a few more members. Solo grab onto a Ting. Earthshatter basically solo onto Mui, who previously then also used a very optimistic Molten Core that didn't get a lot done, and started to feel like Nova MS lost the plot there. They kind of just got themselves thrown into the chaos, as it were, and came out the bad end of it. And because they had staggered kills, and even though the Grab and the Earthshatters were not super high value in terms of, okay, this isn't going to win your team fight, but because it stops Nova from pushing, and they only have 10 seconds left, well, they're not going to respawn to make any push happen.
So look, my fears have been somewhat alleviated. I said we might not even go to a map 5 because I questioned Fiery Society's ability to execute on a lot of the strategies you see on this map, but look, I'm happy to be proven wrong here, right? Because it now feels like this is their map to lose, and if they do win it, we do go to that tiebreaker, and again, it ends up being up in the air. They may be down 2-1 right now, but it still feels like it could very much be Fiery Society's series to win.
I will say that going into B, that's where you would have favoured Fiery Society a little bit more. But we didn't even get that. That's actually the incredible part, because you favour Nova MS for capping A, you favour Fiery Society for being able to defend B. Don't have to worry about B anymore. It's going to be Nova MS now playing the Rhine Goats to start with. It's going to be with Mui still on the Torb. Fiery Society see this and they're like, we're all too happy to shake your hand on the 3-3 Mirror Gentleman's Agreement.
And they can also just rotate out of the spawn in a way that doesn't leave them vulnerable to the Torb. I say that as look for you take some chunks, but just drop the Lucio ball a little bit there. But nice charge in from Satchok. That's an early kill and a massive one at that. Now Nova MS, they know they can't stick into this fight, so they go into full retreat. But this is where Fiery Society have a composition that can do what Nova MS couldn't. They can start running over Nova MS as they try to backpedal out of this position.
And this is where I also think the Torb is really awkward as, as a member in the composition. Nuns gets a free ride on the cart. But Nova MS, look, it's going to be a reasonably late respawn for him in particular.
It's a hearse.
And Far East Society, that was pretty grim.
Yeah.
Gotta say, Far East Society now making decent progress. They only need one decent push to finish this map, take us to a map 5, and they look like they're on their way to that.
They got 3 minutes to do it. They've been able to start charging some ultimates as well. Nova MS are pretty close in a lot of the big ones, but Iris is ahead in Transcendence, and a tempo Transcendence could be enough. Nice displacement on a Ting. He goes for a charge on a Sat Shock. If it's even a trade, that could be enough for Fiery Society, but it's better than that. They just find a Ting. There's the tempo Transcendence, and now Fiery Society can just pile the pressure on Nova MS in and cannot keep these members alive in the same way that Iris could, because there just aren't as many to keep alive, and Nova MS is going to fall apart on that point. 2 unfortunate defenses in a row means Fiery Society looks like they were unstoppable there on Havana.
And honestly, sometimes Mui giveth and sometimes he taketh away as well. I did not agree with the Torbjorn pick
away
right at the end where, okay, they've also locked themselves into this comp because usually Mui is your Zarya player. Nuns would be your Diva player if you're going for standard 3-3.
Yeah.
Nuns starts on the Zarya, which means Mui has to swap in the Diva. Don't know if that's really in his hero pool. If it's not, well, like I mentioned, he's stuck now on something that's not Diva. They're stuck on that composition. Talk about Hollywood as being a non-winnable map for Fiery Society. Appears that Havana was a non-winnable map for Nova MS. So now you've got 2 very close maps to start with, 2 very one-sided maps after the break, and Ilios can still go anywhere. That is very much a coin flip.
And in a way, it does feel like, especially across these last 2 maps, it has come a little bit more down to the team's flaws than their successes, in as much as Fiery Society struggling with their pushes. And then also we saw recently on Havana, we saw Nova MS kind of getting hamstrung by a compositional decision they made, and you sort of start to look at that and you go, just play normal. I don't know, like where is the breaking point for this series?
And I think there's a case where because the game was mostly on A, look, if we had the whole map available for the defense, maybe you would have had different decision making by Nova MS on the A defense as well. But because they've only got A, the safest thing to play is something close to a standard 3-3. And I would probably agree they probably should have just stuck to a standard 3-3. I think there was a potential fear that, okay, Fire Society may bring out DPS if they play fires and stuff like that can roll over us on A. However, we also know that's not really what they want to do. In fact, as soon as Fire Society saw that there was going to be a 3-3 matchup, they went for that because that's what they want. That's what they're very confident in. Their starting composition actually gave a lot of clues as well because they expected a bunker. They had the Genji start. They thought that if we're going to play dive here, that would be ideal because they should be playing bunker. And in a sense, you would expect a bunker to come through from Nova as well. However, mentioning that there is only 1 point to defend, that is too risky to bring out when you've only got A. If there was B as well, you lose on the bunker. Great, go to B, swap the 3-3, you're still in the game. Yeah. That just wasn't the case for this map.
And a lot of that is that Fiery Society did do, I begrudgingly say it, a good job, at least on the later part of the A defense. Yeah, the first part went pear-shaped, and they were a bit lucky to get what they got in the second part, at least at the beginning with that 3K from Aros. But after that, they actually just played a really good defense.
Yeah, Nova, unfortunately, kind of threw it away in some cases. We'll see if they can now bring it back for map number 5, where Fire Society now on a bit of a roll can really take things to the finish line here. 3-2 will be the score for someone. Find out for who right after this break. Hello once again, about to get ready now for our map number 5 here over at Contenders Pacific for Season 2, Nova MS, Fire Society 2 and 2 apiece. Going here, it's actually very hard to call. Now let's look at also context of this particular matchup, because Nova currently sitting at top 2. I believe they're currently number 2 in the standings. Yeah. Fire Society looking at number 4. So in terms of, okay, that's a decent disparity, not the biggest. However, you have to also think about pre-season here. You have a Trials team, the second Trials team, not even the first, up against 2-time runner-ups in Nova.
Yeah.
The fact that we're this close is a big deal.
Right? I mean, it's got to be unbelief. I mean, this is also, we say 2-time runner-up, they've actually picked up some members of former Hong Kong Attitude, like an actual winning team. You've got Shailin on here. It's like, and a Ting, actually, for what it's worth. You just
and Inan.
And Inan. They're all
just
all
won
there,
last season.
But it's just, that's the thing, is like, what right do Fari Society even have to win this? But I mean, the reality is, if you play better on certain maps, then you have every right.
They've playing very good overall across the entire series. Look, Hollywood has probably been their worst map, but the other 3 maps have all been very good for them. Go into map number 5. This one's all good for them. That's 4 out of 5 maps that were very good for them. Only one that they need to really look back on. However, I would say that it's more questionable for Nova, because really you expect more from this team.
Yeah.
They are meant to be the team that, even at the start of the season, we said this has to be the team that challenges Talon Esports. Talon have lived up to their expectation. Nova so far have been quite wobbly. They've lost to Green Leaves. They're now at risk of losing to the other Trials team as well. That would be 2 losses to 2 Trials teams. And the worst part of this would be that they now fall out of the race versus Global Esports, who are on track record to get that second place if Nova don't.
Unless Global Esports themselves lose today. And I mean, there's also the head-to-head. Like, it's,
I guess, yeah.
But you're dead right? It feels, I mean, spiritually, right? It feels like a loss here sort of goes, well, look, you're Nova MS, yeah, you've won some, but you've looked shaky, and you lose to, you know, what should be 2 of the weaker teams. And if we look at some of the actual weakest teams this season, like Jupiter, last week Nova MS nearly lost to them too. So what's going on with this team? Find out after this.
For a bit more extra context, Global Esports did beat both Green Leaves and Fire Society, so there's that to live up to as we now head into the first round here on Nova MS, coming back out onto the Arissa Hog comp, Torback being played by Mui. Fire Society, it's going to be the Sombra Goats.
We've seen Nova MS really hamper Fari Society with these pick options, especially the hold hook combo. We've also seen Fari Society in other ways deal with it quite handily. We'll have to see which side of the coin it lands on as we flip it at the start. Iris slips out there.
So here's the deal. Nova have lost all their positioning, but Fire Society have taken far more damage. In fact, they've lost a member.
Yeah, they had a hack on Jervis as well, but they weren't able to actually get onto him. So now the shoe's on the other foot, and it's Fire Society losing all their positioning on the point, and also losing members for what it's worth. Satchok trying to get busy in this room with Nova MS. They get a bit of headway, but they can't actually put a dent in these tanks without the likes of Red and Evil. They've committed Satchok's Primal Rage here. They're really going hard on it, and Red and Evil has rejoined the fight. So this might end up working out. The Molten Core is there just to hamper the charge across the point, but it's actually Nova MS kind of on the retreat here.
And Nova have not capped just yet, so they're putting a lot into this one. Shailin may be able to turn things around, but there's so many members for Nova down. You're expecting the cap for Fire Society at any moment.
And right as they run up to try and get Shailin, he gets a rocket barrage. He still ends up going down though, but man, he nearly held on to that.
So now you have that clean cap. Well, I say clean, but it's been rather costly on both ends. Nova MS are going to be the ones to now change up most of the composition. Not going to be able to really push in with the Arissa Hog combo. And I say they lost positioning really fast. And that's important for Nova, because you need your Arissa set up somewhere. You need your Hog to be with your Arissa. Play for the whole combo. Play for the well as well. And for Nova to have them to now swap so quickly up against the EMP as well, it's really dangerous.
Yep, no real answer to it as it connects onto 4 members. Should be a pretty easy breezy cleanup for Fari Society, and ideally they want to get some ultimate charge into the pocket of Satchok. He maybe doesn't get as much as he would have liked there though, but Fari Society is still well ahead in terms of ultimates.
And the only member that you really want to have, okay, not be hacked here, is probably Inan, because he has the nano boost, can put it onto either Nuns or a Ting or Mui. That would have maybe given Nova some potential to stay in that fight, but possibly also better for them just to reset. Keep all their ultimates that they do have. Wait to play for catch-up here. Don't have too long because the cap's already 55 in favor of Fire Society. Fire Society win 1 or 2 more fights, they win.
The nano boost onto a Ting though, and it helps them get a lot of ultimate charge as well as damage out. Fire Society still having around this point as pressure onto Shailin, needs another stun, still alive incredibly, but it feels like it's only a matter of time here. Nuns are not being in a good position here, taking the brunt of a lot of damage.
See if a team can stay long enough. Primal range being available here is going to be pretty important. Instantly stunned up.
Yeah, he has been able to lead Satchok though in that ultimate charge, so Satchok's still yet to commit his. Now Satchok's going to be able to throw his out though, and that's very critical. The Coalescence as well, as the Tings now runs out and he is off into this side room, ends up going down. Another EMP from Red Evil. This one's massive, and we are rounding the bend of 90% as well. This is probably the last fight, and by goodness, Fiery Society are winning it.
Fiery Society will be taking this very shortly, you can imagine.
Self-destruct from Nuns.
98% Nuns will have to do a lot of damage.
And he does none, unfortunately. Mui's grab not going to be the trick either, and Nova MS still slowly but surely getting forced back further and further and further. They lose Nuns now, or they at least lose his mech. Now they lose the man himself. In and goes down before he can get that nano boost off. Jervis at least gets a sound barrier, but it all counts for now if Nova MS don't get kills.
This is going to be the final attempt now.
Ooh, Jervis!
It's 2, but is it going to be good enough though?
It's
Maybe
probably
too
not.
little.
Not with a Ting going down. The overtime is going to disappear way too quickly, and that's going to be 100-0 for Fiery Society on Well.
And you also see, okay, the EMP coming through, blocking Mui from using the Graviton earlier, because they were at 95-ish kind of percent anyway. He goes down. If he stays alive, maybe they can turn things around, but Nova, sadly, because they had to swap compositions after losing that cap initially, they didn't have a lot to work with. Fresh comp, no ultimates, lose the next fight as well. It's about 55 and then re-push back in. The next fight goes for so long that we're at the 90% mark. Now finally you see some ultimates, but the EMP back available. If that's not enough, Red Evil has a second EMP for that as well. This is going to be the double kill that Jervis does get. However, did also mention this wasn't going to be quite enough because they also lose Shailin and Mui just beforehand.
And then they lose a Ting soon after. You'll also note that this is actually off the point anyway, so Nova MS hadn't even been fighting on the point for most of that. Now coming on to Ruins, we actually saw Mui hovering over a Widowmaker, chooses to not take it. Instead, they want to match the Sombra.
That's the thing, there's no counter sniping here, there's no Widow on the other side, and also you have Nova where, okay, they're going to play a composition where Mui's not stuck on something like a Torb. Nuns can go on the Sombra instead. Mui is back on the Zarya, and this is where you expect maybe Nova can turn things around. Satchok had to go back to spawn just to change the run.
They also actually swapped out Red and Evil and Iris. Red and Evil was on the Sombra, Iris was on the Moira, so they just want to go traditional goats, essentially.
Again, they're very happy to shake your hand. They want to play this 3-3 matchup.
Ooh, Satchok. Good hack onto Iris. Nun's getting a lot of pressure down. Doesn't quite get the finish off, though, and Shailin does die in the main chunk of the fight. This is Nova MS getting forced back. Ting getting picked as well, and this is why Fiery Society are happy to take this handshake, because inevitably they're better at playing this right now than Nova MS are.
They also don't want to have to play the Sombra unless it's against DPS. You'll notice that in an actual mirror composition, in a Goats versus Goats, they just want to play the standard. They don't want to bring in even the Sombra. They're very confident in even going up against the Sombra. Nuns now at 96. And Nova had, by the way, the opening position advantage as the point unlocks, because it's Fiery Society that has to go back to spawn to even get the right composition, so they have to come in late.
Iris will not have an answer, unfortunately, for this EMP. He's close, but close is not close enough, but it only catches 3 here, and it's not 3 that are being all that pressured, because it's actually Fiery Society putting the pressure on, getting aggressive on Nova MS before they were quite ready to commit themselves, so nicely handled on the whole by Fiery Society, and a huge cooldown gone for Nova MS.
And by the way, you see the timing push there for Fiery Society where they may be suspecting an EMP to come through, so they push him early. Nuns is now behind the 8 ball. He uses an EMP, however, it's blocked by a bunch of the pillars there, so he actually doesn't have line of sight on every single member. Iris got low, didn't actually go down, still has a Transcendence to be able to be used.
Now Fiery Society just leaps and bounds ahead, all things considered.
Nice
catch
in,
off to in, and we're already really high in the percentage points. Nova MS are barely getting any headway in these fights, and this is with Fiery Society not even really having to use ultimates. We say that you can't just be a team that only plays goats, but if you play it well, then you end up in situations like this and you win with it.
Well, the problem is you can't play only goats if the other team can play maps where they're allowed to be flexible. If Nova don't want to be flexible, if they want to match you here, then yeah, you absolutely can play. You have 5 ultimates. Nova have 3 coming up to 4, no EMP, and you're about to hit 90%. This is so winnable for Fiery Society. They should be looking to close it out 3-2.
This is exactly where we were on Well. It's exactly exactly where we were on Sanctuary. It is exactly where Far East Society want Nova MS to be. The grab going to come out on 2 members. Can there be much of an answer? Iris has Transcendence in and certainly does not anymore, but all ultimates thrown down on the table now for Nova MS. They nearly have EMP, but they lose in. Self-destruct on the point, gets no one, but Ating is too low, cannot stay alive. Now the EMP finally comes out, but Nuns is to translocate out. Mui is left alone on the point to die, and that is that. Double 100 to 0. They drag it to a map 5, and that is where Far East Society take the win.
They drag it there, and they absolutely walk away as well. And unfortunately, Nova are the ones being dragged, kicking and screaming. There'll be a lot more of that to come now. 2 and 3, the scoreline for them, as they take their second loss of the entire season. Global Esports, the biggest fans of Far East Society right now, who may have just delivered a second-place finish in the regular season to GE. And Nova, unfortunately for them, the team touted as the potential talent killers, the potential team that takes it to talent that at least gets second place, is now nowhere even close. And we said, look, in week 7, when Nova gets to finally play talent, that will be one to watch out for. Now it might just be another 0-4. It'll just be another 4-0, another walk in the park, another day for Talent Esports to clean up the season 28-0. And Far East Society really proving themselves. We also mentioned they've only beaten the 2 teams sitting at the bottom. Can they beat someone above them? They now have.
And this is exactly the same path that Greenleaves walked again, drawing that parallel. They got a more predictable win, shall we say, in Japan Bowl. And then they follow that up by killing, yikes, that sounded brutal, by taking down Nova MS. Nova MS is still alive. They're not dead, but they get that win is what I'm trying to say. And that was the one that solidified them as like, okay, here's a serious team. Watch out for these guys. Now Far East Society walking that same path, also going up to get that 3rd win. The 2 we say is often enough to keep you out of that bottom 2, but with how the bottom end of the standings are starting to look, 2 might not be enough, so getting a 3rd one just helps keep you a little bit ahead in that foot race, at least ahead of the back.
It actually keeps you ahead of Greenleaves as well, who you do have to play later if you are Far East Society, because they are currently sitting on only 2 wins, and they are looking for number 3. Greenleaves went down 0-4 to Talent, and so for the time being, Far East Society are at least on par with other teams at 3 wins. We mentioned, okay, knocking Nova down at peg. Nova's at 3-2 now. So is Far East Society. They've not evened that up. GE's above both at 3-1. GE will be playing just a little bit onwards from now, but Nova's entire season is in a bit of a disarray now. Are they going to make playoffs? Almost certainly. How are they going to look there? Possibly not as good as we imagined. And Far East Society is a team that all other teams now have to respect a lot more after this.
I mean, if you're losing to the likes of Greenleaves and Far East Society, and it isn't to say anything ill of those teams, this is more just for the context of Nova MS. I mean, the reality is actually just you're losing to teams. That says your ability to make a grand finals again is severely hampered.
Exactly. So we did say the season was going to be quite open for anybody after Talent, that is. We'll have to see now if the other teams can also make do. GE versus Xavier coming up on your screens after the break, but we will be taking one for now, so you want to keep yourselves on your seats glued because there's still more exciting matches coming up right after this.